In today's video, we delve into the controversial climate policies of the Trump administration, aptly summarized by the phrase, "Burn it all down and drill everywhere." From the repeal of the Clean Power Plan and expansive offshore drilling to the relaxation of vital fuel efficiency standards, we'll dissect how these decisions have shaped the landscape of environmental regulation in the U.S. We'll also explore the weakening of the EPA, rollbacks on methane regulations, and the prioritization of fossil fuels over renewable energy sources. Join us as we unpack the broader implications of these policies and their lasting impact on our environment and climate commitments. 1. Repeal of the Clean Power Plan. The Clean Power Plan was a cornerstone of the Obama administration's efforts to curb carbon emissions. It aimed to reduce emissions from power plants by 32% from 2005 levels by 2030. However, under Trump's directive, this plan was repealed, allowing an increase in coal use. The rationale was to revive the struggling coal industry and protect jobs, though critics argued it disregarded the environmental impact. The repeal led to an uptick in coal consumption, which is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, further exacerbating climate change. This action sent a clear message that economic concerns were prioritized over environmental health. 2. Expansion of offshore drilling. Another significant decision was the expansion of offshore drilling rights. The Trump administration opened up previously protected waters for oil exploration, reversing restrictions placed for environmental protection. This included areas in the Arctic and the Atlantic, sparking concerns over potential oil spills and marine life disruption. The expansion aimed to bolster domestic energy production and reduce reliance on foreign oil. However, it also increased the risk of environmental disasters, endangering fragile ecosystems and coastal economies reliant on tourism and fishing. 3. Relaxation of fuel efficiency standards. Federal standards for fuel efficiency were also relaxed under Trump's watch. These standards were initially set to push for more fuel-efficient vehicles, reducing carbon emissions and consumer fuel costs. However, the rollback allowed manufacturers to produce more gas-guzzling vehicles, undermining efforts to combat climate change. The decision was justified as a move to lower vehicle costs and give consumers more choice, yet it led to increased gasoline consumption and emissions, counteracting progress made in previous years. 4. Weakening of the EPA. Budget cuts and policy changes significantly weakened the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. The agency's ability to regulate pollution and enforce environmental protections was curtailed, aligning with Trump's broader deregulatory agenda. These changes included scaling back on scientific research and reducing enforcement of existing regulations. As a result, industries faced fewer penalties for environmental violations, potentially leading to higher pollution levels. The EPA's diminished role reflected a shift towards prioritizing economic growth over environmental stewardship. 5. Rollback of methane regulations. One of the most contentious policy rollbacks was the relaxation of regulations on methane emissions. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas, and previous regulations aimed to limit emissions from oil and gas operations. By rolling back these regulations, the Trump administration allowed for increased greenhouse gas output, drawing criticism from environmentalists. The decision was seen as a boon to the fossil fuel industry, reducing compliance costs at the expense of environmental health. It highlighted the administration's preference for industry interests over climate action. 6. Fossil fuel over renewable energy. Throughout his presidency, Trump consistently prioritized fossil fuel development over renewable energy initiatives. This included support for coal, oil, and natural gas projects, while stalling progress towards green energy. Investments in renewable energy were sidelined, delaying the transition to a sustainable energy future. The administration's focus on traditional energy sources ignored the potential economic and environmental benefits of renewables, such as job creation and reduced emissions. This approach contrasted sharply with global trends towards cleaner energy solutions. 7. Reduction of national monuments. In a controversial move, Trump reduced the size of several national monuments, opening up land for mining and drilling. This decision threatened biodiversity by encroaching on protected habitats and disrupting ecosystems. Critics argued it prioritized short-term economic gains over long-term environmental preservation. The reduction of these protected areas was part of a broader effort to expand resource extraction on federal lands. It raised concerns about the potential loss of cultural and natural heritage, as well as the impact on indigenous communities. 8. Changes to the Endangered Species Act. Changes to the Endangered Species Act made it easier for industries to develop land without considering wildlife impacts. The revisions prioritized economic development, potentially at the expense of threatened species. This shift in policy reflected a broader trend of deregulation under Trump, aimed at reducing bureaucratic hurdles for businesses. However, it raised alarms among conservationists who warned of increased risks to vulnerable species. The changes highlighted the administration's focus on economic growth, often sidelining environmental considerations. 9. Withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. The U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement was a significant setback for global climate action. The agreement aimed to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, requiring international cooperation. Trump's decision signaled a lack of commitment to these efforts, isolating the U.S. from global climate initiatives. The withdrawal drew criticism from world leaders and environmentalists, who viewed it as a step backward in the fight against climate change. It underscored the administration's preference for national interests over global cooperation. 10. Investment in fossil fuel infrastructure. Finally, Trump's administration invested heavily in fossil fuel infrastructure, including pipelines and coal mines. These investments further entrenched the U.S. reliance on fossil fuels, delaying the transition to cleaner energy sources. The focus on traditional energy infrastructure was seen as a move to secure energy independence, but it ignored the environmental and social costs. The emphasis on fossil fuels contrasted with global trends towards renewable energy, highlighting a divergence in climate policy priorities.